Well, I mean, certainly the result is disappointing. Government feels like it was a very fair agreement that we came to. Obviously, government has made some significant investments in K-12 education in the last budget, a 9% increase in school operating funding, the largest increase we've seen in provincial history, quite frankly. We've seen the multi-year funding agreement with this 27 school divisions, to ensure that classroom supports funding stays at an absolute minimum going over the next 4 years. And of course, on the salary piece, if you look at it, significant back pay for the average teacher in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan teachers are already compensated at or above the Western Canadian average, and this agreement would keep Saskatchewan teachers above the Western Canadian average. So I mean, again, it's the result is disappointing because again, government feels like this was a fair deal and a good agreement for teachers. But going forward, it means we're going to have to get back to the bargaining table and continue working.
90% and more of teachers disagree that it wasn't a fair offer. So will you be willing to compromise, be flexible on some of the items that teachers say are important in this offer?
Well, I mean, if you look over the last several months, there's already several areas where government has moved on significant items. And so, I would say we haven't seen the same from the Teachers Bargaining Committee, but, government is committed to, again, making significant investments in our K-12 education sector, which we have. And, again, government wants to, certainly, I think everybody in the province, not just government, wants to see a deal done so that we can provide predictability for students and families and teachers. Again, disappointing result, but it means we can get back to the bargaining table and continue working on things.
Will that happen Monday? The teachers have said they're willing to return Monday as the government's bargaining committee going back as well?
I think I can say that there will be some discussions happening next week in terms of what that looks like. The structure of those discussions, it's still being determined. I know I had a call with Ms. Beacott last night, just a short conversation. We just want to make sure, from my perspective, I want to make sure that any discussions that do happen are productive and are lengthy enough that we can actually continue to move things. I don't want our committee to show up and then things end after 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I think everybody in the province wants to know that when we go back to the bargaining table that it's going to be a productive discussion, and so I'd say there's conversations happening on both sides to see how we can make that happen.
With that 90% vote, there's obviously strong resolve among teachers that they're supportive of the job action that has already happened. There could be more should an agreement not come into place. Earlier, you had pledged to protect things like graduations. Is that still on the table, and how what happens if an action is fast approaching?
Yeah, I mean, government is still very committed to ensuring that graduation ceremonies happen. We've been in, I would say, ongoing conversations with all 27 school divisions about how we ensure that to happen. I know 24 of 27 school divisions are able to continue with graduation ceremonies as is, even under job action. Those 24 divisions have figured out ways around that. There's still obviously a small number of divisions that are going to have to figure out how we do that. The Ministry of Education has asked for how we can help with that to ensure that all students in Saskatchewan have the opportunity to walk across the stage who are graduating this year.
I think teachers are really wanting that memorandum of understanding enshrined in the contract. So if you could just go over again kind of what's part of that MOU and kind of why the government isn't kind of moving to put that enshrined into the contract.
Well, it's referenced in the contract, right? I mean, and let's not discount the fact that over the last several years, there's been plenty of conversations in the education sector about predictable and sustainable funding. Government has answered the call on that with the multi-year funding agreement, right? There's the multi-year funding agreement, ensures that classroom supports funding over the next 4 years stays at a minimum. That hasn't been a guarantee in the education sector before. And so it's a pretty significant commitment by government to make that happen. And I would thank the school divisions for working with us on that to get to that point. Really what the accountability framework will do is it provides the accountability framework provides an opportunity for teachers to have input on kind of how divisions are allocating those classroom supports dollars. And quite frankly, it just comes down to we were fine with the line in the contract saying that we would honor those agreements. Government fully intends to honor those agreements. We put that sentence in the contract, and so again, I'm hopeful that we can get back to the bargaining table and continue to get closer to an agreement.
You've alluded to possibly extending the school year into the summer.
Yeah.
Is there plans on maybe following through with that, and maybe what the reaction of the public could be from extending the year?
Any decision in that way would be in concert with school divisions, right? I mean, the reality is, even though they have been work to rule sanctions, instructional time has been affected in several divisions. And there There's going to be several divisions that won't hit the 950 hours that are required under the legislation. Again, we know, and I heard Ms. Beacott on the radio this morning talking about, previous years with snow days, and that's a fair point. I mean, that's a reality here in Saskatchewan. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that students in this province are receiving the education that they have the right to and deserve to every single year. So, of course, we're going to be working with school divisions to make sure that happens.
How are you approaching bargaining different now?
Well, I mean, the challenge with, I'd say, this whole process over the last several months is so much of it has happened away from the bargaining table. And so, it's government's perspective, and, this is the part of the conversation that Ms. Beacott and I had last night and previously as well, is we got to get our teams back to the bargaining table, because that's where we're going to get an agreement done. Well, I mean, it's back to work legislation doesn't really make sense in a work to rule situation. So that's not something we're considering at this time.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.